A warm welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale in Lagos. We begin in Liberia as the country prepares to go into a nighttime curfew following a jailbreak in the city of Maryland. President George Weah imposed this because of the aftermath of violent demonstrations involving tens of thousands of mostly female protesters. At least 90 inmates on Wednesday escaped from a prison during the protests in Harper City near the border with Côte d'Ivoire. Police spokesman Moses Carter said the demonstrators broke into the country's prison compound in search of an alleged killer of a motorcyclist, resulting in the jailbreak. He said the rioters also set fire to the home of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who hails from the region. A spokesperson for the police also says police struggle to contain the protests because as many as 20,000 and 30,000 were involved. Let's turn to governance now. In Malawi, President Lazarus Chakwera on Wednesday postponed the announcement of a new cabinet lineup, saying he needed more time. His office said he had received cabinet assessment reports from Vice President Saulos Chilema on Wednesday and could not make the changes immediately as the reports were substantial and needed the president's thorough review. A statement by the presidential press secretary, Brian Banda, reads, given that the report are as substantial as the president's review is thorough, the completion of the task will take a few more days longer than anticipated. The president had on Monday told Malawians that there would be a cabinet reshuffle in 48 hours. He has now asked for patience, saying he will announce the cabinet the instant he completes this sacred duty in a manner that conforms with the Constitution. And Tanzania's new president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has reshuffled her cabinet more than a week after she was sworn in following the death of President John Magufuli. The cabinet includes some new faces. Among them are career diplomat Liberta Mulumula, who now takes over as Foreign Affairs Minister, replacing long-serving Minister Professor Palamaga Kabudi, who returns to his previous Justice and Constitutional Affairs portfolio. Ms. Mulumula was Tanzania's former ambassador to the United States. She's the second woman to serve in that position after Dr. Hasha Rose Migiro, who served between 2006 and 2007. Mwigulu Nkemba, who was the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, now becomes the Minister of Finance, filling the position that was left vacant following the appointment of Dr. Philip Mpango as Vice President. President Samia said a major reshuffle was not necessary since most of the current ministers were recently sworn in. Now, days after the insurgent attack on the Mozambican town of Palma, survivors of the attack have been moved by boat to the port of Pemba. Many walked out of the boat crying as they were escorted to safety by aid workers.
The boat that arrived at Pemba port was carrying more than 1,000 survivors of a highly organized, deadly attack by Islamic State-linked insurgents. Aid workers were at the crowded port to give food to those disembarking from the ferry, while police and soldiers kept control of a crowd of people anticipating to see their relatives rescued after the attack.
They said they didn't want us. They wanted the military. The military were not in their uniforms, and the ones not in uniform were saved. Some of them were cutting the throats to the people from there.
Islamist insurgents have been increasingly active in the surrounding province of Cabo Delgado since 2017. Although it is unclear whether they have a unified aim or what specifically they're fighting for. One survivor spoke of her experience, saying that she spent 7 days in hiding in a forest without food. The district where Palma is located is adjacent to natural gas projects worth $60 billion. It is home to around 110,000 people, according to United Nations estimates, of whom more than 40,000 sought shelter there after fleeing other attacks elsewhere. Aid groups believe the attack has displaced tens of thousands of people, many of whom fled into dense forest or attempted to escape by sea. Hundreds, including many foreign workers, have been evacuated by air.
And now, still on security matters, 7 persons, including security operatives, are reported to have been killed in fresh attacks on communities in Shiroro local government area of Niger State here in Nigeria. Gunmen reportedly invaded the villages yesterday night into the early hours of this morning, abducting over 10 persons and stealing motorcycles after setting ablaze some military vehicles. Some soldiers were said to be among those killed, although this is yet to be confirmed by the military authorities. Eyewitness accounts have it that the bandits stormed the camp of the Joint Security Task Force comprising the Army, Police, Civil Defense and Vigilantes and opened fire on them. The chairman of Shiroro Council said about 100 armed bandits attacked each of the communities for about 5 hours unchallenged. However, efforts to get the reaction of the state police failed as the public relations officer did not pick up his calls. And still in West Africa, one man's lifelong dedication to planting trees and improving agriculture in the unforgiving arid lands of the Sahel in northern Burkina Faso has helped to hold back the desert and hold on to life. Yakubu Sawadogo has devoted his life to halting the tide of desertification, and for his effort, he has been honored by the United Nations as a champion of the earth.
Farmer Yakubu Sawadogo is known as the man who stopped the desert. It's also said that he brought life back to the arid lands of Wahiguya in northern Burkina Faso. His accomplishments earned him the Champions of the Earth 2020 award from the United Nations Environment Programme, who say Sawadogo's vision, innovation and determination succeeded in reversing the desertification process that was decimating his agricultural community.
This tree that I have just planted will produce a lot of umbrage. It will also bear fruit, which will benefit people and animals. It is a really good tree.
In the 1980s, people in the semi-rural city of Wahiguya, a city of more than 70,000 people, started feeling the effects of climate change, rising temperatures, and a drop in rainfall.
The forest you see here today, it was a real desert before. There was no umbrage or shadow from a single tree here.
Subsistence farmers in the Sahel region depend on rain-fed agriculture, and as the rains lessened and became more erratic, crops started to fail and animals and trees died. Rather than flee the region like other farmers, Sawadogo decided to see if it could improve on the local Zai technique of planting, widely used by thousands of farmers in the region. Traditionally, farmers start working the land during the rainy season when they plant a seed in a hole dug in the degraded earth. Sawadogo believed it would work better if the land was prepared well before the wet season, so he dug wider and deeper holes and filled them with natural organic compost. He also surrounded the planting area with rocks so that when the rain starts, the water is directed towards the seeds and none of the moisture is lost. And so once the rains arrived, Sawadogo was ready to plant the seed in naturally fertilized, well-drained holes. Sawadogo applied the same technique to plant trees, which he said are crucial to reducing the effects of climate change and which he sees as the source of most life. Today, the 70-year-old walks around in his 40-hectare forest containing more than 60 species of bushes and trees, as well as medical herbs that he dispenses to the local community.
To health matters now in Taraba State, northeast Nigeria. The government says it will continue to immunize residents against polio, especially newborn babies, to avoid the disease from resurfacing. The state government has inaugurated a 21-man task force committee on polio immunization to create awareness, track funds, and provide routine update on immunization activities.
The certification of Nigeria as a polio-free country continues to be a source of joy to Nigerians and governments at all levels. Nevertheless, efforts continue to ensure the country does not drop the ball. And for the first time, the Taraba state government in northeast Nigeria is setting up a task force on immunization. Among other duties, the committee is to ensure effective leadership and coordination of all immunization activities in the state.
The terms of reference of the committee include the following: to ensure effective leadership and coordination of all immunization activities in the state, to prepare and regularly review, update a 12-month state's plan for the intensification of polio eradication and routine immunization activities.
The World Health Organization and the State Primary Healthcare Development Agency say they are upbeat of the success of the task at hand.
But I want to believe today's occasion will definitely change the narratives and will bring Taraba State under the Committee of States that have functional state task force on immunization, and will stand to benefit more from other supports that will help us drive the process of sustaining the immunization activities, our routine immunization activities across board.
We have national round in May. That's why I say we have COVID-19, we have national round for polio that is coming. This is another task that I'm sure the committee can sit down and look at it. That's why all the key stakeholders were members of this committee to ensure that His Excellency being represented to show that Taraba State is going to win that about $50 million that some states are getting.
The state government insists that immunization against poliomyelitis must go on, and so asked the 21-man committee to effectively coordinate its execution. It's also hopeful that the $60 million support fund by the WHO, in addition to locally generated resources, will go a long way towards sustaining the program.
And over in Ethiopia, survivors have given their accounts of horrific details of how gunmen shot dead at least 28 people in a nighttime raid on their village in the Oromia region on Tuesday. One man, a father of 7, said he and his family fled to a bush when they heard heavy shooting as the gunmen, suspected to belong to the Oromia Liberation Army rebel group, stormed their village as they were getting ready to go to bed. The man said they hid in the bush for the night and returned the next morning to find bodies outside, including that of a mother with her 2 children aged around 1 and 2 years lying on top of her. He added that 18 other villagers were wounded in the attack and were being treated in hospital, though other reports put the number of wounded at 12. Another man, a father of 4, said 30 people were killed, with all of them being ethnic Amaras who had been shot dead after being dragged out of their homes to attend what the gunmen called a meeting. Still to come on the program. You're never too old for school, as one 50-year-old Nigerian lady proves. We'll tell you all about it in a moment. Please stay with us. So our coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. India's temporary hold on major exports of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine will undermine Africa's vaccination plans. The warning is coming from the director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, John Nkengasong, who thinks it would have catastrophic impact if extended.
The warning by Mr. Nkengasong comes as India decided to delay big exports of the shots made in its territory by the Serum Institute of India to make sure it could meet local demand.
It will definitely impact our ability to continuously vaccinate people. The first wave of vaccines came in through COVAX, and it was predominantly from AstraZeneca from India, from the Serum Institute. And if the delay continues, I really want to deliberately hope that it is a delay, not a ban, because that would be catastrophic if that was the case. Then meeting our vaccination schedule becomes problematic, very, very problematic. I think that is common understanding that we wish that there's continuous supply of the vaccines from India, and we continue to engage with COVAX and lend our voices to the fact that this should not be happening because it will affect all of us.
The African Union had planned to vaccinate 30 to 35% of the continent's population by the end of the year. The target primarily relies on supplies from the global COVAX vaccine sharing facility, through which 64 poorer countries, including many in Africa, are supposed to get doses from the Serum Institute. COVAX aims to provide enough shots for African countries to inoculate at least 20% of their populations. Meanwhile, other African countries are making other plans for vaccines. Nigeria hopes to receive up to 70 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine this year through the African Union. Rolling out vaccines in developing nations such as Nigeria, whose 200 million strong population is Africa's biggest, is seen as key to stemming the global spread of the new coronavirus. On Monday, Johnson & Johnson said it will supply the AU with up to 400 million doses of a single-dose vaccine beginning in the third quarter. Nigeria previously said it had applied for 41 million doses of vaccine through the AU, comprising of Pfizer, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson shots. But Schweib said the proportion of AstraZeneca doses was likely to be reduced by the delays.
Some of the allocations that we're supposed to get for the AstraZeneca will be replaced by the Johnson & Johnson. That is still yet to be finalized. So in the end, it does appear like we're going to be getting more doses of Johnson & Johnson compared to the AstraZeneca, and those numbers could reach close to 70 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson eventually.
Mauritius has extended its lockdown for another month starting today, and the police will enforce a new temporary restriction of movement order. Failure to wear a face mask can result in a fine of up to 500,000 Mauritius rupees and a jail term. The fine had previously been 50,000 rupees. Police had reportedly fined 2,674 people for not wearing face masks and another 7,127 for breaching the restriction of movement order. Finally, Madagascar has decided to join the global COVID-19 vaccine initiative COVAX. The government said on Facebook that there are still many steps to be taken before access to the vaccines, but the registration is already an important step in the process. Madagascar had initially indicated that it would not participate in the COVAX initiative. It said it would rather use a locally produced remedy known as COVID Organics.
Now, for more on India's hold on the AstraZeneca vaccine, Professor Lekon Ayo-Yusuf, a member of the Gauteng COVID-19 Advisory Committee, joins us now from Pretoria. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, sir. What do you make of the vaccine shortage that could be created by the decision of the Serum Institute of India?
I think the implication can be quite catastrophic. It depends on how much delayed this is. If it's about a week, it's not a problem, or 2 weeks. But once it starts going into months, it's a problem, because the idea behind vaccination is to get what we now all commonly refer to as the herd immunity. That is, we want about 60 to 70% of the population vaccinated, so that they become less susceptible to acquire the infection or to transmit the infection. So if that is delayed, it means you have more people transmitting the infection. And the more people transmitting the infection, the higher the risk that you're going to get variants. And if you get variants, the variants are usually more transmittable. So you can imagine the exponential problem that we are going to be facing, particularly if you combine that with the fact that in the last 6 months, there's been a rapid increase in infection in Africa, which means the likelihood of variants is going to be there. And the only way we would have avoided that was to rapidly vaccinate.
Is it better for African countries to make their own vaccine arrangements than relying on the COVAX initiative to avoid situations like this?
Yes, it's very clear that it seems to me that the COVAX or the block arrangement seems to be taking secondary consideration to country-level arrangement. I mean, the situation currently is that India has experienced an increase in infection. And based on that, they decided they needed the Serum Institute to produce more for local need. And that makes the covers go to the secondary concentration. So each country should ideally be fighting for its own population. Of course, the cost of this is always the challenge. So the news that J&J would be coming through for Africa, for me, is actually the best news you can get. Because you remember, AstraZeneca would have been 2 doses with at least 4 to 12 weeks apart before you can say you are actually vaccinated. J&J is 1 dose. So even the delay of 90 million AstraZeneca, if you can put in a J&J, 1 dose, you will actually make up the time.
All right then, Professor Lekon Yusuf, thank you so much for your thoughts on Network Africa. And moving on now, the latest returnees from Saudi Arabia are alleging that the Nigerian consulate in Saudi Arabia is returning more citizens of neighboring Niger Republic than Nigerians who are stuck in deportation camps in the Arabian country. These Nigerians, who served mostly house helps in Saudi Arabia, are also accusing their former bosses of sexually molesting and maltreating them while in their service. The returnees are being camped at the FCT Hajj camp at Basanjoa community in the nation's capital in line with COVID-19 protocols. And finally on the program, many of us attended school when we were young, and for many of us, school has helped us become the person we are today. But what would have happened if we hadn't attended school so young? Well, 50-year-old Shade Ajayi proves age is just a number, even when acquiring the most basic education. Take a look.
Shade Ajayi had never set foot in a classroom until middle age. Now the businesswoman is happily learning to read and write alongside students nearly 4 decades younger than her. Donning the pink dress and bonnet that make up her uniform, she joins hundreds of similarly dressed pupils at a school in Ilorin in Nigeria's western Kwara state. I am not ashamed to wear a uniform, she says. When I go out in the morning, I wear it, carry my bag and go to school. Whoever that is looking at me should look. As a child, she worked in her aunt's shop instead of attending school. Ajayi signed up to attend school in the last academic year, only for it to close due to the coronavirus pandemic. But school reopened in January, and Ajayi finally got her chance. Sitting at a wooden desk surrounded by pupils aged 11 to 13, she politely raises her hand to answer questions. Her classmate, Halimat Adedogun, says it is strange to see someone her age in her class.
I see it as a strange thing because seeing Auntie Shade in our class, it has never happened before. It has never happened before, and I'm proud of Mama.
Tajudin Fatima, Dauda Sulias, Fakai Odeniola, Ajayi Shade, present.
Her teacher says the mature student appeared completely undeterred by the age gap.
So far so good. Shade does not have any problem with the students in the class. She has been coping well with them, playing together, talking together, discussing things together. Even the ones she does not understand, she tries to ask the students in the class.
Shade wants other women to take a cue from her to be educated. She runs her own business, making and selling purses and bags, but believes her inability to read or write is holding her back. She intends to continue her education for 4 more years, saying it will help her business.
Well, wow, that's amazing. It just proves that age is just a number. Well done to her. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shuboale.